Turf Talk with Drew Miller.
On this week's podcast, we have none other than industry legend, Mr. Josh McPherson of the St. Louis City Soccer Club, Director, Stadium, and Grounds. It was truly an honor to have Josh on. He has been a staple in this industry for so long and truly has seen all areas of the sports field management industry. And we actually have a lot of overlap with the people that we've known and met and worked with in this industry, with our time at Virginia Tech and so many more opportunities that we've had. And it was just truly incredible to hear his story and where he's been and how he got to Mizzou and just how everything has gone so well in developing this new Major League Soccer team and facility and being on the ground floor and truly having a voice in some of the big decisions that really can make or break an entire facility like the one that they have there in St. Louis. And it truly is a testament to his knowledge, his abilities, and truly just overall what he has done. And one of the biggest things that I found so incredible about what he did was the crew that he assembled. Being able to take the knowledge and be aware of the areas that he needs a good background for his assistants and for his staff. Going out and getting industry professionals like Maritza down from South Carolina, playing an integral role in a staff that truly it complements each other so well in what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish as a team. And that's what we all need to strive for in this industry. And I think Josh sort of emulates all the critical aspects of what it takes to be a successful as well as a sound grounds crew. And I can't thank Josh enough for taking the time. I know I've been bugging him for quite a while, and obviously he's been super busy, so we really appreciate him taking the time and just being just the overall amazing guy that he is. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Tiger Turf Talk. Welcome back to the 101st episode of Tiger Turf Talk. I'm your host, Drew Miller. Today we are accompanied by such an incredible person in this industry. We have Mr. Josh McPherson, Director, Stadium, Grounds for the St. Louis Soccer Club. St. Louis City Soccer Club. See? Told you I messed it up.
That's right. City. That's
How are you doing this afternoon? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day here today. I think the weather is going to change like 50 degrees tomorrow, but I
was going to say we're about to hit it's going to bottom out and be like, well, where did this come from?
We haven't had a match all year, and then we have one next to, Wednesday, and it's going to be 20s for the first time. So,
oh, that's so nice of them. Just throw it right there when we hit the goal. Obviously you have so many things going on. Like you said, you haven't had a match yet. And there's so much that goes into planning a facility, especially the location being in the city. What has it been like for you? Taking on from the ground level, pre-build everything that is St. Louis City Soccer Club.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun and a welcome change after grinding the last 20 some years. And it's when you're in this industry, you're just event to event to event, and it's really cool that November 16th is our first event, and I think November 20th was my last event, so it's almost like a year sabbatical in a way. And it was a lot of fun. We hit the ground running here. They already kind of had basic designs going, and I started about a week before field build actually started, last December. But because I had so much experience with construction, from Casey at Virginia Tech and then at Mizzou, joining the SEC, all we were doing was construction. I got to be involved in all the stadium construction because I was actually the first operations person in the whole club. So we had a consultant, and he's now my supervisor, but I got to be involved, with everything. We're, 2 years in the construction process, but it was just great. Like I got to have impact, got to make decisions, got to, change things the best I could, because all of us have our own kind of recipe, and it's unfortunately, I feel bad for the architects. It's never going to be what we want.
Exactly.
But got to be in here soon enough to actually get some of those changes made.
And that's awesome. I mean, when it comes to, coming into a place where, again, it's a brand new club, it's a brand new everything, and then having the ownership and everyone in the operations room understand that what you're bringing to the table is professionalism and knowledge that a lot of people just assume like this is the blueprint, we go with that, what were some of those things that you really honed in on? Like, we have to have this because of our location in the transition zone, maybe. I know I was talking to Maritza about your guys' heating system and everything that goes into maintaining Bermuda grass in St. Louis. What were some of those things that, again, you have put your sort of blueprint into your stamp into the blueprint?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Luckily, the process from our ownership was amazing. So they had already decided before I got here to invest in the lights, into the heat, into the drainage system, the sub-air system. And so like the big things were there, and they'd already chose Northbridge Bermuda grass, which is what I prefer to grow here in Missouri also. So like kind of those big ones were there, and they were getting it from Carolina Green, which I have a lot of familiarity with. So it was things like maybe how we route the irrigation, or how the heads, what order they're coming in, or what clock we're using. So I'd have the ability, to run certain zones at certain times, specifically on the practice pitches. And that was great because our head coach got hired a couple of weeks after I did. We met right away, and these were things we talked about. And he's like, "Hey, when I'm training, I want you." He loves his water, so we are constantly watering around them, during training. So we're able to, kind of manipulate where those are. And then from experience, where do I have shutoff valves if we have a problem? How are we running those pipes compared to like everything? Is everything under the artificial turf? Okay, what happens if it breaks? Can we move it in under the grass so that way we have an easier time maybe to fix it, and those kind of things. And then figuring out like where are we going to be set up, where the equipment goes, making tweaks to the equipment that was coming in. That was like kind of the fun stuff. And then it's kind of hard. I can't remember the details, but I know I had a long list. Like, why is the drainage like this? Why is it that rock? I got here soon enough to help pick the root zones, and I required much testing that happened to make sure we were picking the right one. And so, it's great to have all the experience and then be able to use that experience.
Yeah. And that's what I think is so cool about all these new stadiums and jobs opening up, is like being able to build it from the beginning, having your own fleet, that you have your obvious preferences, whether it's Toro, John Deere, whatever, like understanding that these are the things that I need in order to make the impact on the player safety, on the longevity of the field. There are so many new standards, I think, that have come out that are just like, oh, we're just going to resod here. You don't need that. Oh, we're going to redo this, that, and this. Like, being able to have a sense of, okay, this is the expectation. I'm not planning on a certain renovation or anything like that. And I can have everything I need to optimize everything at the highest level all year long, and for as long as it's going to be before anything really happens to it. I think that's so cool that you got the opportunity to do that. So something I do kind of want to talk about, since we're on the subject, what is the facility made up of? I know it's in near downtown-ish St. Louis.
Yeah, it is right downtown.
Practice facility backs up to the stadium, correct? Am I right in saying that? So if you could sort of just give us like a facility rundown of where you had an impact on, and just sort of like how it all sort of, it sounds like an incredible complex. So sort of how that came together.
Yeah, so it's really great. So we're the only MLS facility that has the training center, the practice pitches, and the stadium and the academy all in one centralized downtown location. I can see the arch from my office every day. We are right next to Union Station and the giant Ferris wheel, if anyone is familiar with downtown St. Louis. And so there's two reasons. Part of the reason they were kind of looking at this area, our ownership was really wanting to invest in St. Louis. It's a St. Louis company. They are really looking at this as how can we improve downtown St. Louis while also doing this. And so, so we've got everything back to back, which is amazing, because then, the hard part in a lot of these sports is if you're at the stadium, you might not have that interaction with the coaching staffs on the day in and day out. But then if you're at the training facilities, you kind of don't get the glory of match day. And so what's great is we are all able to be with everyone all together. And I see every blade of grass, about every day. And so then we've got 3 grass fields that are Northbridge Bermuda grass. The stadium, we have a sub-air system with the vacuum and the blower. We also have 8 grow lights, and we have a full glycol heating system. Awesome. And then you move to the practice pitches, and they are also heated. And that's the big game changer for Bermuda grass to the transition zones is what I'm seeing so far, and ryegrass establishment, really. And so those are heated. And then across the street from that, we have one synthetic pitch that our academy is using. And we, maybe hope to expand at some point and add more.
Now, the heating system is very new in the sense of like the technology has only been out for a couple of years. Am I right in saying that?
Well, this glycol system, yes. When I was at Virginia Tech years ago, they had the sub-air forced air system, and I did some of my master's research on that, and it wasn't the best, but I think it's how we got to where we are now.
Okay, so I had the opportunity to see it. Ryan Bajorn has it up at the Revolution facility, and I believe he put in like 1 strip of Bermuda grass in his bluegrass fields. Could you sort of discuss like the overall impact? Obviously, when we talk about soil temps and everything, when it comes into the scientific side of things, what has your experience been like so far? Again, I'm sure it hasn't been too cold yet, but it's getting there. But you guys have great thriving Bermuda grass in sort of the upper end of the transition zone when you're talking about fluctuations in temperatures and really cooling down a lot sooner in the year compared to places like, I don't know, North Carolina-ish, even us, here in Virginia.
Yeah, it's when I took this job, I came from DC area, and I'm like, oh, I know transition zone. Yeah. And then my first couple of years in Missouri, I realized it was colder in the winter and hotter in the summer. And
pain in the ass, isn't it?
Yeah. And so luckily I'd only really grown grass in the transition zone for the last couple of years, so I kind of knew. But what's interesting is how I always prefaced it at University of Missouri is like, pretty much from like October 15th to March 15th, sometimes even April 15th, we're not growing any Bermuda grass. So I've got that small window to grow it in, to give a mat to grow the ryegrass in. And what I'm seeing here is we've had a couple days that have gotten in the 20s. But with the heat, we are taking a lot of clippings every day. And it's a lot of fun. So the practice fields, we didn't have covers on because they're being used, 6-7 days a week. And then the stadium hasn't been used at all. So we're able to baby it every time it gets cold with the covers out. But it really is. We are growing active Bermuda grass. Now, with that being said, I'm a little nervous that it's going to drop down to 20 degrees in 2 days here for, at night. I don't know what, we got pretty happy, lush, fat Bermuda grass right now. So it's going to be kind of a fun thing,
system, right?
Yeah. Well, it's actually, I had a meeting earlier, like messing with the heating system, trying to figure out how to regulate those temps and with big swings. And, the heat is down 10 inches below. So what temperature do we need to be there to manipulate about 3 inches down, and to move it through the sand? And it's, but no, it's really like I'm really enjoying having heat. And like I said, and also too, the ryegrass establishment, because it seems like the last couple of years, the ryegrass establishment window, because it went from like summer to fall to winter in like days, seemed like it was like less than a week. So what I'm really finding is we didn't overseed till mid-October, and we were able to get it to come up no problem because we have that heat and we're able to get it going.
That's awesome. And it's so cool to, listen to you talking about how, like, again, different things happen in different places. Like, understand like the climate changes of even across a pitch, when you have shade and you have all these different factors that don't really come into the mind of a not turf manager, like talking about forcing heat through to get to that point where like, okay, we're going to be okay. Like at some point, like I'm really interested to see if we ever find like sort of a standard of practice, which I don't really think there will be when it comes to like, again, microclimates with all of that. Like I know Travis Hogan, he uses fine fescue in his field because of the shade issues that he has on one end of his field. I'm like, who thinks of that? Like no one else is thinking, oh, I'm going to oversee with fine fescue in my ryegrass. Like, it's just cool to hear all the different ways. And again, just what you guys are doing. It's awesome. So now I do want to shift. You talked about a little bit about, Casey and the guys at Tech being able to see sort of the construction side of things. And don't know when the field was constructed, but I actually saw Casey on Friday last week. He was talking about how like there's a chance they're going to be moving on to the next step because I mean the modular system's been in there for quite a while. So, what has your journey been like through this industry? The guys you've met, and again the different experiences you've had in turfgrass management.
Yeah, it's funny. The story keeps getting longer the longer I do this, but the basics of it was I was at Michigan State University and switched majors into horticulture and then had to take turf science. In the first lecture, Dr. Rogers was talking about grass for the World Cup in the Silver Dome. And then we had our lab section that week, and we were so lucky. And our horticulture group was all kept together. But at the time, John Sorokin was our GA, and I mean, what a joy and what
a classroom that is.
Yeah, and right, and so this is him, trying to become Dr. Sorokin. And it's just awesome. Like, and I fell in love with the whole idea of doing this. And he's talking about going to Madrid and Barcelona and all these trips. And we're talking about World Cup, which is really a lot of fun now that they're involved with the World Cup again
and everything. Yeah.
And also too, Dr. Rogers was the consultant on this project here in St. Louis. So it's just, awesome. Kind of full circle. But anyway, I got into it. With them, and then I lived just in Southeast Michigan, north of Ohio, and so I joined the STMA, and Sylvania Parks and Rec had won like Parks and Rec Field of the Year, and Boyd Montgomery and Brian Hall were there, so I went and worked for him for a summer, and then I moved to Virginia Tech, and got to go work with Casey and the guys, and that was just awesome. I mean, Buford Meredith taught me how to paint lines. I mean, kind of tear up almost thinking about it. What a great experience. And, and the guys that were there, Andy and Emerson, were students at the time when I was GAing, so I got to be a part of their growth, and they're still there. Ronnie was there, Pete was there. I got just so many stories. And really, when you think about it too, Jason Bowers was there. I think I was 24, Jason was 25, and Casey was 26. And it's just wild to think of that.
That's awesome.
When I talk to my assistants now, I'm like, oh, you can be head groundskeepers in your 20s, and it's just wild to think. But yeah, so then I was at Virginia Tech for the 2 years, and I left graduate school early because at that time, that's when Sully was leaving George Mason to form Game Day Inc. officially. And through my association, through like the VSTMA and Jason Bowers and them, I was able to get to interview for that George Mason job. And then I got to go be there for a couple of years. And how great was that, and then, that long Jimmy Rogers was there before Sully and Dan Douglas before that. So kind of just this little hidden gem of a great place to get to grow grass.
Mason had some hidden gems. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just like I said, another great opportunity. Then, Washington, D.C. Parks and Recs decided they wanted to start investing in fields with Mayor Fenty. And so I went and did that for 2 years. And that's where I really got a lot of the construction. I don't know how many fields. I feel like it was like 13 fields we built in that couple of years time. And then that's when, I kind of missed college athletics then at that point, and this University of Missouri job opened. And so for 12 years, I was at the University of Missouri. I thought it was great because I got back in the Midwest. I thought I was moving closer to home, but I was actually the same distance from home, from Michigan.
That's always good. You're like, wait a second. Dang it.
But it was really cool because like when I was at Virginia Tech, we went from the Big East to the ACC, and then I got to Missouri and I got to go from the Big 12 to the SEC. And it's kind of cool. I don't know how many other people have done two conference realignment. Well, probably now it's a lot more prevalent, but
everybody changing their mind, right?
but that was great. And, and it hit that right when that SEC network started. And all of a sudden we all went from having maybe 1 or 2 games a year on TV to having like 100 events a year. And, just a lot of fun. And then, when I was at Virginia Tech, that's when they, like I said, but when I first started, like I said, Jason Bowers wasn't even there for the first month. It was just Casey and a GA essentially, and then Ronnie and all them, and just kind of making it all work. They decided to kind of break it all up. Like instead of having all of us just running around like crazy, like let's have someone do some football, someone do baseball, someone do soccer, lacrosse. And so I was all like, yeah, football. And then Jason was like, I want you to do soccer and lacrosse. And I was like,
dang it.
I'm like, okay, whatever, I mean, I'm just a GA anyway. What's it matter? And I loved it. I really took ownership of the sport, the field, getting to deal with all that. And, the men's and women's program were amazing then. Briz, the head coach now, is the assistant coach. I mean, it's kind of cool to watch him, but I really fell in love with maintaining soccer fields. So every step of the way, as I did things, at University of Missouri, I really probably didn't have to work on the soccer pitch that much if I didn't want to, but I just loved it. And so when this started happening in St. Louis, I was like, I'm close, maybe, and I throw it around, maybe not. And then once I started the interview process and I met the ownership and everyone involved, I was like, as Jason Tyne said, how often do you get to build something from scratch?
It's very true.
And I was like, oh yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, they got one of the greatest, so they did a good job. And again, I loved hearing the story. I mean, it's crazy how much things sort of cross over in people's stories, when obviously we share the shop at Tech and everything, but I mean, Sully works on our fields, obviously, with his consulting and everything like that. I've known him since I was in high school. I mean, it's crazy to see just sort of how everyone's journey sort of is all intertwined in a way, whether that's just friendships that you've made over time or actually working with the people that you worked with. I mean, the guys you're talking about, you're saying they were students. They were my bosses when I was there.
Yeah, right. I mean,
it's great. It's awesome just to see also the growth in everybody's careers, it's crazy to think about and how far everybody's come from where they started. I mean, Andy, I was talking to Andy. He has the soccer field, as you know, and he's very secluded with everything. Like, he's a very quiet guy, obviously, and whatnot. I was like, you enjoying life up here, man? He's like, dude, I love it. I'm like, that's great. He has a turf tank now and everything, so he loves that. I'm like, Andy, you don't even paint the field anymore. He's like, man, why would I, So, I mean, it's great to have those people, which kind of leads me to my next question. Obviously, you were talking about your turf dad and everything, like with Goatley, and everybody obviously knows one of the greatest to ever do anything, really. Who has been there throughout your career that have had such a big impact on like where you're at now? I mean, and there are so many great ones in your story already, but what were some of the ones that really stuck out to you?
I mean, it's Sorokin and I had a connection right away when he was a GA and I was a student. I mean, we still remember, we talk about it all the time, his wife, girlfriend at the time, and my wife, girlfriend at the time. Like, we had basketball tickets near each other, like down in the, we'd always see each other there. And then, I was at Virginia Tech, and then he got the job at Tennessee. So he always jokes on the longest running grad student he's ever had, because he was actually on my committee since he was so close. And he had some of that experience with shade and some of the grow cover stuff, and he had some of the tools. Mm-hmm. And so, we drive down to Knoxville for meetings, or we'd meet in the middle and have Dr. Samples, who's a great professor down there at Tennessee, would arrange like us at these amazing country clubs I had no business playing golf at. And we'd have a committee meeting,
That's awesome.
Yeah, but Sorokin's always been there. And then, when I first started at Virginia Tech, Dr. Goatley was not there. Mm-hmm. And so that was actually an interesting experience, being a grad student and going through the process of hiring a new turf professor. So we got to be involved in a lot of different kind of meetings with other people. And so what a great person to come into your life then. Every time I used to go back to Blacksburg, that's whose house I stayed at. Like, they joked like I installed their TVs or speakers for him at one of their houses.
Nice.
So he's been there. Casey, we don't talk a lot because it's Casey. But his impact on me, I have a lot. I joked with you when we were trying to connect on this podcast. I have a lot of his bad habits of taking like weeks to reply to a text or an email.
Yeah, you're fine.
But there are so many things he did for me. Like, he just threw me in the fire and was like, go take care of this stuff. And I messed up a lot there. And never once was I in trouble for that. And I've always kept that with me. And he never blamed me either. If talking to a coach, he took the blame on himself. And those are some big lessons I've taken with me my whole life. I don't know. I got this huge list of people here, and then, it was great too. When I got to Missouri, Brad Friesenberg was there, and just one of these amazing behind the scenes sports turf guys who didn't have any glory, didn't have like the glory. Like I used to joke, he invented sports turf, he was doing sports turf before it was like the popular thing in turf research. So, I mean, I know I'm missing people. Boyd Montgomery, I made a list so I wouldn't forget.
I love it. I love it.
But Boyd Montgomery and Brian Hall, Jason Bowers, Eric Irvin, Sully, Jimmy Rogers, Bob Studholm. He was the president of the VSTMA when I was coming up and let me be on like these committees as a student, So, yeah, there's a lot. And then Mike Alden, the AD at Missouri, who one of the people that brought me in, him and Tim Hickman, they were amazing people in my life. So
that's awesome. I love how you have a list. It's hard to,
I still miss people.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to recognize everybody, and like Dr. Irvin, he was my advisor when I was here. He actually left my senior year, I think. But like him, I mean, Dr. Gully, all those guys, McCall, I mean, the whole David and I were grad students together. That's awesome.
So that, and that was what's fun too. Like all the people I was grad students with at the same time. So Whitney and I were and David, we were all grad students together. And then like the other people at the other colleges, and Pam Sherritt was a grad student then. And I mean, I'm trying to think of some others. Jim Brosnan, it's just like
lineup.
Yeah, and even at Michigan State, I mean, think about it. When I was an undergrad, it was Jason Henderson, John Sorokin, Tim Vanini. I mean, it's just. And Tim Van Loo and I were in the same, classes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Matt Anderson. Yeah, it's just there's so many.
Everybody.
And then and then really to this day, Jesse Pritchard and Chris May are still two close friends that I have that, you can. Hey man, I'm having this. That stuff you wouldn't share with anyone else, like on the fields. Like, how would you fix this? How would you do this?
It's one of those behind the door. Like, I'm not gonna let anybody know. What would I do with this?
Yeah.
No, it's funny how you were talking about Casey and his habits. I've always Casey is one of those guys, and again, he impacted me more than most people have when it came to like me as even a human being. Obviously turf related. Like he was one of those guys that always outworked you, and you were like, damn, I gotta what are you doing, Casey? Like, slow down for 2 seconds, please. Like, I gotta catch up.
Yeah.
And you never wanted to not be outworked by him, but it was never possible to catch him, And it's funny because when we were down there on Friday, I was giving him so much crap because he's moved up in the food chain of things and he's forced to be in his office and whatnot. And I was like, "Oh, Casey, what are these? These are shoes? I didn't know you had shoes." He's like, "I have to look a little bit professional, Drew, for my job." I'm like, "Oh, really? Now you do." But Casey's always been there for me, and whenever I actually need him, he will answer the phone. It might take a couple times, but that's because he has a full box and he has 75 people calling him probably when I called him. So
yeah.
But it's moments like that you carry with you, like you were saying, again, never blaming anybody but himself, always taking that changes. And I think moments like that change the outlook of people's sort of career. I talk about Matt Brown with the Pirates. I don't know why I keep telling this story, but I ran into a wall bat 15 minutes before first pitch. I was dragging the warning track. I'm like, and I didn't notice it until I went back around. I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is there a hole in the wall? And until this day, I'm like, Matt, I don't know how you didn't scream at me or anything like that. Like they had to go out and take the pad down and put the whole new wrap on it. I was like, that carries weight, the fact that in the moment, again, first pitch 10 minutes away, like I always carry that with me whenever I'm frustrated. I don't ever want to impact a kid in a negative way in the classroom because of their mess up, which I have a little bit more of a high volume of mess ups because there's 200 of them. So
yeah, right.
But again, that's what's so cool about all of it. Something else that I wanted to talk about, obviously, with your current role was not just, again, one of the biggest things that we sort of undervalue in turf is personnel in the sense of a staff. Obviously we have all these incredible people in our lives and Underwood, Ciroc, and all these guys, but the day to day, there are so many different things that go into it, and behind it is the staff. What was it like for you sort of constructing your staff now that you have at St. Louis?
Yeah, so that, you were asking what are the things I really focused on, and really it probably was more staff based. Like I could tell this was different here in that my opinion was not only valued, but it was really listened to. And so I had this vision of what I thought the ideal maybe grounds crew would look like. And, and it's like, if we're going to do this right, where we can take care of each other, where we're not missing major life events for sporting events, sports are important, but also, having a happy crew that's not just working all the time. And then also to have a dedication to actually pay turf people what they're worth. And I went to my ownership and I presented this plan, and they're like, okay. And so I was like, oh, okay.
like, you don't have any question? You don't want me?
Yeah. Because it's funny in the beginning, I was like, this job was great. I had no boss, no fields, and no crew.
That's awesome.
So it was a nice little break, but so I was able to put together, I call them the dream team. I think they're the best staff there is. And so I was able to hire one of my assistants, Seth Weymouth from University of Missouri, and he came in as a student. And right away as a student, he wanted to be in charge of something his first week as a freshman. And I was like, you can help me with soccer. And it was great. So awesome. He's always been my soccer helper. And then I was able to hire him full time, and got him a good internship with the Philadelphia Union. And then I really was hoping to find someone with some heat and light experience. And I was lucky enough to find Alex Peters from Sporting KC, who was maintaining their stadium pitch and had a lot of doing the heat and lights in this climate. It was even better awesome. Than I could ever dreamed of, and a lot of experience. And, he could be a head groundskeeper now, and then, the third one, I was trying to just look around, and you see Maritza kind of floating around on Twitter and everything. And I had a great opportunity to go look at the sod at Carolina Green. And, I called Clark Cox at South Carolina. I'm like, is Maritza going to be around? I'm like, I'm going to make a pit stop, And, what I loved is she had no idea who I was, and why is this person meeting with me? And I just kind of wanted to meet with her, and it was great. And overall though, like we put out these postings, and the people who applied were incredible. Like, I was hearing all these horror stories about hiring, and I forget how many, like after the first day we had like 20. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to be done. And then I don't even remember what the number got up to, but it was so overwhelming, the amount of people who applied. And it was great. Alex applied, Maritz applied, and all them, and we were able to, meet with them, and we did a series of interviews. And I'm very lucky. Like I was joking, like I got to remember how to mow and paint, because they're all so good. And it's really nice. And what's really great too is their interaction with our coaching staff, with the athletes. The sporting side here at City is amazing, and the ownership side is amazing too. Like everyone's just great. It's like it's a joy to be here every day, and I think that helps to having a crew that you put together. And it's a lot of fun. Now we haven't had a match yet either, so
you haven't seen the challenges yet.
but
I'm sure you've had
this
plenty
is
of
the
time.
group I want to go into battle with,
And that's also awesome to hear, because I mean, when there are some experiences that I had that I like saw like tension or like issues between boss and employee, like where it's I wouldn't say it's toxic, but it's like counterproductive in a sense. It's really great to be able to have people there that want to be there and want to and honestly have energy. Like knowing Maritza, like it's just constant. Like, hey, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? I'm like, I mean, at the Little League World Series, I like Maritza. Just calm down for a second, please. Okay, I'm not even working, and I'm just trying to breathe here. Okay. But there's just so many things that, and again, I love how you brought in people with the talents that you needed, the heating and nobody would really think about that, and that's what's great about you is you understand the necessities and the sort of areas which that you can benefit knowledge from people who are working for you. A lot of people don't look at it like that, which I truly appreciate because I want my kids to have the opportunity to meet people like that and work for people like that. So, it's really awesome to see and be able to hear. I mean, coming from the head guy, it's always good to hear. Obviously, there's a lot of things that go into what you're doing day to day. Is there anything from maybe your time at Mizzou, Tech, wherever it is that you sort of have brought along, whether it's practices or sort of the standard of practice for the crew into St. Louis that you think is good to know and understand moving forward again into your first season?
Yeah, it's not so much agronomy based, but it's probably the positive coaching training I got at University of Missouri. Dr. Scotta Morton really is a big influence on my life that I probably didn't mention earlier, who she was, when I first started doing the positive coaching training, she was a student and, finished up with her PhD and was our mental performance coach for a long time while I was there and helped me with my first talk. But it's really what it's carried with me is how to treat a staff, how to treat people, not just your staff, but just anybody. And there's so much negativity. It can be real easy to keep going down that road. So that, that's probably, it's less agronomics and more like people based. And it's unfortunate because we really don't get training in at all. And through the college, we learn how to every little thing about how a plant cell wall works. And, but like, I didn't get much of that management training. Like I said, you don't realize it until after maybe you do some of this training, like, oh, well, Casey was a good influence the way he treated me, but you're not thinking of that at the time. Like
not like on a piece of paper, like this is what you need to know. Right.
Yeah. So, that's a big part of it. Agronomic wise. I mean, Casey even told me this when I left for George Mason, the growing grass will be the easy part. It's not that it's not challenging, but it's all the people management and it's the, managing expectations. And that's what's so great about where I am is I have the sporting side's incredible. Like I don't have to tell them to move every day. They do it automatically. And, they respect us and the athletes and the coaches treat us respectfully. And if they give us feedback, it's not in a negative way. It's they know we want to be better, so those relationships I think is what's so key to all this.
What has it been like sort of creating those relationships at St. Louis Soccer Club in comparison to maybe a college? Because there's so many different like hierarchies in sports field management that I think a lot of us don't really examine in a sense. Like I was able to work in NFL, MLB, NCAA, and now high school. Like there's a way in which you're doing things to get it done properly without stepping on toes and things like that. What has it been like for you creating those relationships? Obviously, college, you have coaches that a lot of those relationships happen. It's probably a lot more player based in the pros. Like, what has it been like for you and even your staff creating those relationships here?
Yeah, it's been remarkably easy here is what's amazing. And I think this is unique to Bradley, our head coach. I mean, his first day here, he wanted to meet with me. That was important. And he laid down the foundation that he'd respect us and our crew and he'll listen to us. And, he had luckily come from Red Bulls, which they win so many awards, and that's how they do things, and so he's seen it firsthand. So that made it easy. I wasn't prepared for like how easy it is to get like the interactions with the players themselves. And, and it's what a difference. Like that first meeting with Bradley, he's from South Africa. And then our director of sporting's from Germany. And I'm like, I remember this moment sitting there and I'm like, wow, my life has changed drastically.
Yeah.
And it's all respect. It was no yelling or no, like, this is how you're going to maintain the pitches. And so that was a good start. But then, too, now we have all these athletes coming in from overseas. We have, Germans and Switzerland and Bosnia, and it's kind of neat, this melting pot, and I really enjoy it and how everyone just gets along. And it like I said, it's been the most enjoyable part because you didn't know how. Like it was like, this job's great, and then it's like, oh, now we got a coach. Okay, now it's going to get real, and it's been great with Bradley. And even a couple weeks ago, he was at Leeds visiting, and there was a bare area on the pitch, and I just sent him a photo, and he's like, they won't be on that area, just that easy, moving around. So I've liked it. College was tough because it was just such change.
Yeah,
it was
constantly, right?
We just joked it took 3 years to get to know the coach, and by year 4 he was either fired or took another job. But it's not untrue.
No, 100%.
Year 1 they come in, got to fix everything. Year 2 it's like, actually year 1's more like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Year 2 is like, this is how we're gonna change everything. Year 3 is like, oh, you're around all the time, no matter what. Okay, And then, like I said, then usually year 4 it was like some kind of change happening. So that was always difficult, and the stress of the SEC was unimaginable to what they had to deal with. And I saw it firsthand. The people I was friends with, before and Big 12 to SEC, and that just everything changed for them.
I hear you for sure. Has there been any like really awesome memories that you want to share that, like, whether it was player or coach, whatever it is, maybe way back when you were GA or anything like that, that really has stuck with you and really has fueled sort of the fire for, managing fields, because obviously, like you said, it's a grind and there's so many different things that go into it. And being able to wake up every morning and loving your job is hard to do if other people, again, are having a bad influence. But anything like player coach wise that sort of has stuck with you, that's like, wow, this is incredible.
There's always these just little moments here and there, and not a lot of attaboys, but when you get one, it felt pretty good. And like Billy Brown was the coach at George Mason. I think he just retired after 40 some years, but but really learned there because the facilities were nothing. But he's like, we're going to have these camps and we need to get them on the field, because that's when we're going to win them over, because this is going to be the best field they ever play on. And like, it's kind of like that mentality. And it kind of was at University of Missouri also. Once we joined the SEC, all of a sudden our baseball stadium was like nothing compared to some of these. And then 2, we're hosting SEC games, LSU in like March, right? I remember once we plowed down 7-12 inches off the field to play.
Solid. And
and like the Bermuda might be dormant, it might not, the field doesn't look great in the beginning.
It looks like it got snowed on.
Yeah. And then afterwards, like an infielder being like, that's the best infield I've ever played on, some kind of comment like that. Like, you don't even know who it is, but generally if it's just like someone going out of their way to tell you like, man, that was really amazing, or we loved it here, sporting memories, it's hard, like nothing in particular. You just get so into every team you're in, everything feels amazing, especially once you become like friends with the coaches and stuff, then it gets real personal. But nothing, it's usually like these like random probably comments that someone says to you that they don't even realize it meant something to you. Yeah,
that's awesome. And then everyone has those moments, where it's like, okay, I guess somebody gets something, right?
Yeah.
Now, a big part of this industry, obviously, we've talked about different people that, again, our paths have crossed with people. And I remember meeting you, I believe it was in Denver, which was my first STMA, 2014, I think, 2015, something like that. And a lot of it goes into, again, the people in this industry. What has it meant for you to be a part of, again, the SFMA and how has it played a role sort of in your career, even today, knowing like the people that you can be interviewing and how they connect with SFMA and things like that? What has it been like for you being a part of the organization?
Yeah, it's been a huge part, because helping out with the VSTMA at the time is how I kind of really got to meet Sully, which helped lead to my first job, But then too, like if I look back, I don't know, I've been going 18, 19 years probably to the conference. Last year was like the first one I missed. And then when I interviewed for this job, how many people, had I not gone to the SFMA conference, people I met there that made a difference and, or had some connection to this job. And it's amazing. So it's like, it's exciting I can't wait to go to Salt Lake because it's like I haven't been there for like a couple years. But
the COVID year didn't help either.
Yeah, well, exactly right. But and Chad Price I'd met through Casey, but getting the sod, like I'd already been to Carolina Green, back at Virginia Tech. Like Chad hired me to do some testing at the Carolina Panthers when he was there testing out different infill systems, and had been to his place and then met Paul Burgess randomly. And actually the first year, neither of us talked about where we worked. And it was like the next year, I was like, Real Madrid, is that where you work?
Wait a second, what?
Yeah. And through him, meet Simon. And then, so when we did the phrase mowing at Mizzou, Simon actually came over and then with Jared Minnick, and this is when they were kind of starting this thing really going, when Jared and Simon had really thought this phrase mowing thing through and got to have both of them, come phrase mow, at Mizzou was pretty awesome. And then, Simon then, was doing the light sales, and even Matt, who works with SGL now, knowing him from back because, his coach became my coach at George Mason. I mean, it's just funny. Like there's just so many connections and, I mean, I go a lot, it's so important to go because it's not necessarily the education that's really good too, but it's that networking and you can't overstate how amazing it is. And like how the group just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and your pool of people to pick from. I'm really excited because now that I'm in the MLS, a lot of these guys I've kind of been on emails with or whatever, and I get to meet them now. It's kind of like this new tribe. I had the SEC tribe was amazing. What we all went through with having that network form and the added pressure of 24/7, and and now I'm really excited to meet these MLS guys in person, and some I know, some I don't.
Absolutely. I also love how there's like little factions in all of it, I was talking to Drew at Bama, one of my students. He obviously there's no turf program down there, but he loved working on our fields and everything. That he's like, you think you give me a job on the grounds crew? And he's been working for them, doing a great job and everything. And talking to Drew and how tight knit that group is now, with everything going on in the SEC. I'm sure ACC has some stuff, but like you say, MLS, I know NFL guys are super close and all that. It's cool how there's like, again, obviously anyone will help from anywhere, but at the same time, like those guys that are going through the same crap, like they're able to be there whenever you need them, that's what I love about SFMA, because I don't know many industries where you can just sort of be like reaching out and saying, hey, I need some help with this. Hey, I mean, this podcast, things like that, where it's like creating connections and allowing people to have a voice, is just something that's so cool in our industry. So yeah, I think that's awesome. Something I was going to ask earlier, it's definitely a big shift because it's something I should ask before, but you were talking about how you're Northbridge and everything, and that's sort of your preference. What other Bermudas have you worked with? We're about to go through a renovation, actually, and most people haven't heard that. That's probably the first time I've actually spoken in a public forum that our game field is getting renovated this winter, and we're working on trying to figure out what Bermuda is going to be best. And we have Tahoma and we have Northbridge, we have Latitude. I have Patriot from when I wasn't here. But we have all these different varieties, and we've been able to sort of observe how they perform. what has it been like for you sort of through your time with the Bermudas, and why was Northbridge sort of the one that you felt would be best for St. Louis?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We had one of the TIFs at Virginia Tech when I was there, and then that's kind of when the Patriot craze was
Tiff Eagle?
happening.
Was it Tiff Eagle?
No, I know a name we used to call it, but it's not the right name, you know. But you know, and that's really when Sully got going with game day. Is you know, he started spraying Patriot fields, and he could renovate a field so quickly because that Patriot was so aggressive. So then, you know, then I had Patriot at George Mason, and then we were doing Patriot in the city. And then when I got to Missouri, they had some of the older varieties. And so one of the first things I did was bring in some Patriot Bermuda grass. And then, you know, Jesse had tried out that Latitude. I think he had one of the first Latitude fields at UVA.
Yeah.
And so I actually had sod shipped in from Oakwood in Maryland all the way to Columbia.
Where we got all of our sprigs from other.
Yeah. So they actually delivered sprigs, you know, and we did sod to sprig. And then, cause I was trying to get baseball to go from bluegrass to Bermuda. And so we did this one rectangle. And he's like, we want that in our field. I didn't know what Bermuda could look like that. So I had a lot of experience with Latitude, but we had 2 bad winter kill years in a row with the Latitude. And so, and so did, you know, Travis with the Chiefs and Casey at Sporting. I don't know if he was there. I mean, he was there at that time. But anyway, all their Northbridge survived when the Latitude wasn't doing great. And so we made the switch at Missouri. Actually, we made the switch on one, and then one we just sprigged right into the Latitude, which everyone's like, oh, it's almost the same. It was nowhere near the same. So that was a little bit of a struggle.
Nice try.
Yeah. And then, believe it or not, when I was visiting one of the sod farms around here, that was the day they got their Tahoma to establish their sprigs for the next year. And I got like a, you know, little piece and kind of watched it. And then I ended up sodding like a sideline of football with a Tahoma. So I've had them all, and I still like the Northbridge best. The Tahoma had a lot better color. But I love the way that Northbridge reacts. I mean, they comment all the time, our team, but they can hardly tell they practiced on it. Awesome. It just holds up so well. Now it's really hard to overseed also. That, you know, it's one of the issues, but I'll deal with that to have it survive winter and not have the fear of like, we have no grass.
Yeah, very true. So they scratch them up a little bit, try and force the seeds down, and they'll be fine.
Yeah,
for sure. So we wrap up on these last 2 questions. Again, sorry for switching the scripts.
No, that's fine.
Which again, this question is not like to make life simpler or easier or anything like that. It's just curious to see what you guys think. If there was one thing that you wish you could know before you entered the industry, what would that one thing be and why?
It'd be the toll that it takes on my family. You know, so, you know, my wife, you know, girlfriend at the time, you know, we were at Michigan State, moved to Virginia Tech. So she kind of saw it as it was happening, you know, the hours. But my kids had no choice in the matter. You know, they're born to us, and then they get to be children of a turfgrass manager. And so, you know, that's hard, and it's hard to make that time and to make it work. And that's part of the reason I was trying to look for something different, because college athletics was just unrelenting. And I'm really excited to be here. I know we'll have special events and everything, but even, you know, the MLS season it's a long season, but I'm used to having like Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, and so events going on. So it's pretty exciting. In this last year, it's been amazing family time wise. Like, and you know, it's weird, right? Because like those first couple of weekends, it was like, all right, it's kind of like, aren't you supposed to go do something? Like, you know, my children's perspective was I was gone, you know, on weekends and nights. So it's nice to have a change, and that's the hard part, I'd say.
Which, and again, like you can tell, like with everything, like you obviously are making it a priority as the leader of the group to have that time for your staff, which I think is incredible, because it's so hard to do, especially when you're at a professional site, you know, which props to you for all of that for sure.
Yeah, well, they know the belief is that any of us can do anything, and we can so any one of us can cover anybody is kind of what we're hoping to be at.
Absolutely, which is awesome. And that's what's so cool again about having a staff like yours, is because you're going to be able to do that, very short time frame. It's going to be like that. The last question we always ask, obviously we're a high school turf program, and we have a lot of kids who are very interested / actually applying for schools, actually entering the field out of high school, things like that. What would be your best words of advice for them when it comes to entering the turf industry and how it can impact sort of their journey just at the very beginning?
Yeah, don't be afraid to try different things. Like if you think you like baseball, don't just do baseball. In the beginning, you have such opportunity to try and move around. And, once you have a family, then it's even harder to kind of change these jobs. But try baseball, try football, try soccer. And if you're told to be in charge of something that you might not like at the time, it could turn out to be a career later in life that you love,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really like, the schooling and all that is super important, but really, and pick good internships and take advice, because the people you intern for can make or break the whole rest of your life. Even, like they can set you on the course. We all know people, and when we get a good student, we let everyone know, it's like, all right, here's a good one. Like you need
this one. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a person that's going to do this. And like,
Right.
if they call you and want a job, hire them,
100%. So, I mean, and it's so true, when it comes to mentors and everything, make or break. I've seen kids leave the industry because of the experience they had in certain places, and it's like, can't really blame them, so I couldn't agree more on that. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been phenomenal. You've always been spoken so highly of with Dr. Goatley, obviously, and so many people. And it's great to be able to sit down and talk once again, obviously, like we have in the past. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Yeah, well, thank you. This was great. I've been wanting to kind of talk with you more in depth like this too, and I love what you're doing with the program, and it's great. I was telling people what I was going to do, and like they're like, there's like a turf program in high school, or whatever. I'm like, I go, actually in Virginia, there's like a couple of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's so pretty cool.
I appreciate that. We're seeing different programs pop up. I was talking to his name's Kevin McCaffrey. He's started a program in California, Costa Del Mar. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's trying to get to the conference and everything, which is going to be awesome for him. He's been doing a lot of he's a baseball coach, sort of started the program and everything. And I was able to talk to admin and whatnot, which is great. So I know he's been going to like Chargers practice fields and being able to paint and learn all those things.
Oh, yeah. Great.
It's been awesome to see programs like that starting to pop all over the country. So absolutely. I mean, it's great. But again, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, have a great day.